There's nothing but the present moment. Within this present moment, there are 11 million bits of information taken in by our bodily senses. Of this, we can only process like 40 to 50 bits of these per second. That means that in any given moment, we're experiencing less than 0.0004% of the world. With this limited processing power, we attempt to form memories. This is what we deem to be the past, but really have no understanding of the past because we've formed our perspective on insufficient data. In addition to that, it's been shown that memories can easily be manipulated or misremembered, with some researchers estimating that 40% of our childhood memories contain falsehoods. Well, what about the future though? Again, we're limited by our understanding of the present moment. Of all those bits of data that we take in, we can only process a select few and try to do predictive analytics on those. So how do you know if you're processing the most important data? In the present moment, there are certainly some stimuli which are more important than others. Unfortunately for us, though, we're entirely ignorant to this data because we're not even present. In any given moment, we may be focused on something that we regret from the past or, we're anxious about in the future. And we're always getting caught in our head exploring these thoughts that take us out of the present moment. Of that limiting processing power, almost nothing is left to take in what's actually happening right in front of us. We get stuck living in our imagination and playing out past or future events, which very rarely does any good for us. Hopefully we all know what it's like to be present. We don't experience it very often, but when we do, it's thrilling. It's when we feel the most alive, where all of our fears are alleviated. Being present is only possible when there's nowhere else you would rather be than in that moment, when attention is in alignment with your action, and there's no background noise of your thoughts. It's just you and the less than 100 bits of data that you're processing at that moment. A lot of people call this flow state, and once we get a taste of it, it's only natural to want more of it. But how do we achieve this? I put a lot of thought and research into this because I almost feel like it's a prerequisite to living a life full of fulfillment. Through all the research I've done, I've come to the conclusion that there are 6 main activities that you can introduce into your life today to bring more presence into it. By the end of this video, I hope you'll take away what these 6 activities are and bring them into your own life and find a lot more presence because of it. You can achieve daily presence with any of these tips, but by engaging in all of them, you're setting yourself up for a life of fulfillment. So the first one I wanted to share was mindfulness and meditation. Some might say that they're the same thing, or might say that they're different things. And regardless, I wouldn't disagree, but I group them together for a reason. Both of them are about becoming more self-aware about what's happening inside of your own head. Through both practices, you're turning your perception inward. Instead of trying to analyze all the stimuli from the outside world, you're exploring the inner world. Through meditation, often it'll feature closing your eyes and feeling sensations in the body. When you're mindful, you're recognizing these sensations and shifting your perception to explore them. Both practices are powerful because they inform you of where your focus is going. When you're mindful, your self-awareness is elevated and you can detect more easily what you're thinking about. You can act more intentionally by recognizing basically when you're lost in the world of thought and not being present and aligning your thoughts with where you're at in the moment. And you can shift your focus onto something else which is in the present moment if you're lost and drifting in your thoughts. To incorporate these practices into your life, simply have the intention to be more self-aware. And it really is that simple. Recognize where your focus is and if it's in the present moment or not. Over time, you'll become more aware of this world of thought that exists in our minds, and you'll develop the skill and habit to not engage in the expansion of these needless thoughts. I view meditation as a stepping stone towards more consistent mindfulness, or even a tool. If you haven't meditated before, I recommend giving it a try just for a few minutes a day. It's been shown that even 3 minutes can be beneficial. It really does go a long way for increasing self-awareness over where your focus is going. And both of these practices are heavily associated with the next tip that I wanted to share, which is breath work. Breath work is one of the most confusing tips of them all, actually. You might be thinking, I already know how to breathe. Well, of course, we all know how to breathe, but a lot of people, including myself, until recently, didn't know how to do it properly. We never went to school to breathe because it's something that happens naturally, of course. It happens automatically and unconsciously. What you might not like to hear is that there are ways of breathing improperly, and you're probably suffering from these poor methods. Shallow mouth breathing is one of the worst things that you can do for your body. It limits the amount of oxygen that you have in your bloodstream and promotes a fight or flight response, which takes us out of the present moment and into anxiety. As a counter to this improper way of breathing, try to become more intentional. Breathe in with your nose and out with your mouth. Try to make your exhales longer, kind of like this. A pace like that will shift you into a more relaxed state and activate your diaphragm for deeper breathing to allow plenty of oxygen to fuel your brain. If you want to go really crazy, you can even do specific breathwork patterns like the Wim Hof method, which has been proven to be extremely effective in shutting down the default mode network of the brain, which essentially, it's basically the constant chatter and internal dialogue that we experience each and every day. Through specific breathing exercises, we can limit this part of our brain and experience more presence. Breathwork also is combined with the previous tip of meditation and mindfulness to help establish presence. What I personally like to do is, when I'm experiencing an overactive mind, is to shift my focus from my thoughts onto my breath. It's like a tiny reset that you can do over and over again to push yourself back into present. There's a lot more to say about breath work, but as a place to start, combine it with your meditation and be more intentional with breathing deeply through your nose to experience more of a relaxation and a reduction in the overactive mind that you might be suffering from. The next one I wanted to share was challenging work. Challenging work is kind of self-explanatory, but you of course need it to succeed. It's something that is characterized by pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, and not too far either, where you're incapable of doing the task. But the way to unlock this flow-like state is to keep the challenge of the task just outside of your skill, so that you're not too bored nor are you too challenged. This works because it's taking so much of your mental bandwidth that you have to focus basically all your mental energy on the thing at hand, because if it's too easy, then your mind can go and drift off and think about other things. So the goal is to find challenging tasks to engage in, but tasks that are not too challenging. If you pursue a task that far exceeds your abilities, you'll just become frustrated and exist in a state of angst. When anxious, we're not present and our performance is heavily diminished. Try to scale back the level of difficulty, but like I said, not too much. And to achieve maximum engagement, you got to pursue tasks that you're interested in. And if you're working on a task that doesn't invoke any curiosity, you're going to become bored and not perceive it as something worth the effort. When looking for challenging work, ask yourself what you're curious about and how you can pursue learning that in that domain while still challenging yourself. Better yet, ask what skills will this challenge build for me. By identifying work in alignment with your curiosities and dedicating time to do them, you'll not only become more present, but you'll also develop new skills which will help you basically contribute more to the world and in a way that you want to. Next tip I wanted to share was yoga. Yoga is a powerful tool for presence because of how it shifts your focus internal. The potential of being lost in thought is mitigated when you're holding a difficult stretch or you're being instructed to focus on the precise movements of your limbs. Yoga is well known for moving energy around the body and clearing up the mind. There are several different styles of yoga that you can explore, but At its roots, it's simply an art of moving your body and establishing control. Class typically ends with a meditation, and after a full hour or so of moving your body, the mind is at rest. Having the awareness over where your limbs are is extremely beneficial for any sport that requires motor control. And overall, it's a powerful practice that I can't recommend enough. To get started, there are countless guides on YouTube. You can also look for a local studio to begin practicing. Just a few minutes at home each day is enough to improve your bodily awareness and shift your focus off of your thoughts and onto the position of your body. Another tip I wanted to share was journaling. Journaling was one of the things that almost didn't make the cut, but not because I doubt the value of it, but because of the association with presence. To me, journaling is a time for reflection. When you're reflecting, you're not truly in the moment. You're exploring your mind over the past events and distilling lessons to reinforce better behavior in the future. After thinking through this tip more, though, I did realize that it plays an important role in presence. The reason being is because journaling is essentially just writing, and it's writing your thoughts. Instead of writing on a keyboard with a high word per minute, journaling forces you to write slowly and be purposeful with the words that you choose. Your mind can move a lot faster than your hand, so if you want to write something meaningful, you're going to need to slow down your mind and be at pace with your writing. The action of writing and having narrowed focus proves itself to be a powerful presence practice. And I find that there's something special about writing which really narrows my focus and leaves me feeling a lot more clear-headed afterwards. To get started with this, simply open up a clean piece of paper and have a writing utensil. Look throughout your day and try to identify the parts of it that felt meaningful. Continue to write with the intention to learn and be articulate with your words. Another tip that I wanted to share was time in nature. Whenever I'm in a lull, the first thing I like to do is engross myself into nature. Time in nature helps us really detach from the concrete jungle that we normally exist in, and it helps us leave all of our problems behind. By spending time in nature, we get to hear the birds chirping, the sound of the wind moving through the leaves, or the power of the ocean waves. It puts me in a state of awe at the systems that exist naturally. There shouldn't be any baggage from the past or expectations about the future that cloud your headspace while in nature. Separating from developed society is the perfect way to bring more presence into your life. There's not all these sorts of distractions that we're accustomed to. The reason I put this last tip is because you can stack many of the previous tips on top of this one. Meditation, yoga, breath work, and journaling are all activities that are completely compatible with nature. And it's an enhancer for all of these practices, but can also stand alone. There's no right or wrong way to enjoy nature. The only wrong way that I know is to be addicted to technology and having to constantly come back to that while you're out there. Treat time outdoors as a time to detach from the digital world and become engrossed in the physical. If you are in the habit of using your digital pacifier everywhere you go, you certainly will struggle with the pursuit of presence. As you can see, there's a myriad of tools at your disposal for improving your ability to stay present. In my opinion, these are all tools that are usable each and every day. But remember, consistent effort will compound over time and produce exponential results. Even if you just did these tips for a few minutes each day, you could see immense benefits. There's nothing like being present. It might be a battle to convince yourself to do these activities every day, but I promise you that they will deliver.